Andrew Schulz might not be the main character compared to your legends of Hollywood and everything. He can be a great best friend, or he can be
Yeah.
a great elder brother
See,
character.
it's very funny, how people discover him, because I discovered him around like 2017, 18, when nobody even, know about him. He did
Hmm.
not have any appearance on Joe Rogan.
He can speak about anything because like, he's
Yeah.
spoken to MKBHD, and you can see that MKBHD is a bit disheveled after speaking with him.
Some people, their core is different, then you can't be, someone else. And I put massive respect to Andrew Schultz's name because of that. I think he's doing what he's good at.
Being a podcaster, being a creator, a comedian, that still holds true. He has evolved, sure, across formats, but the core still the same guy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Creator Deep Dive. Today's creator is funny, quite special. That's pun is unintended. But before diving into more comedic insults and rants and conversations, I want to introduce Shubham. Shubham, how's it going? How are you?
Yeah, absolutely fine. And you know what? These conversations are keeping me sane
Yeah,
because we're talking about creators, and it's always fun talking about people you're you're watching, you're consuming stuff of. So
yeah.
great,
And
yeah.
today's creator that we have consumed a lot of his content because it is very interesting how his content has shaped culture, right? I feel Andrew Schulz is our person in our creator in question. He's the person who's a comedian. He's been a podcaster. That's a very big part of his personality. He's of course been an actor as well, been a host. Of course these things are quite adjacent, so
Yeah.
all of that is there. But
A
let's quickly,
comedian who laughs a
yeah,
lot.
laughs a lot, and I think
Yeah.
sometimes the laugh is funnier than the joke,
Yeah.
which is great. I mean, you're having a good time. Like I know he's one of those comics who generally has a good time when he's recording, right? Like it's not that he's been okay. It's a pressure situation. I'm doing it because of that. He's genuinely enjoys his. His moment in the spotlight and his moment in the fame. But let's sort of quickly sort of go through his origin story and sort of what he's been through so far, what he's done. So again, this guy has pretty much been the standard New Yorker who's there, like in that New Jersey, New York area. He's got that accent as well. Actually, if you notice his how he says, a lot of the words, you can see that okay, this guy is pretty much
Interesting.
from a the New York
City
accent that's
boy.
there. Yeah, the city guy that's there. So very interesting that way, right? And let's do a quick run through. Like he's been a part of MTV V2, right? So this Shubham for me was a eye-opening moment because I did not know that this existed. MTV V2. So I'll just quickly want to explain what MTV V2 is for the viewers, right? It was essentially started off as a spin-off of MTV, like a paid spin-off which had more music programming and everything. Later on, what they realized is that they want to sort of focus their programming on adult males, like young adults, the male population, the male populace, the American male population. So that's where our man Andrew Schultz, the creator that we're deep diving into today, he got his break, and he worked on a bunch of shows, right? Be it the Hookup, there was another one which was Guy Code, Girl Code. So a lot of these codes and quotes which are definitely there, and they had that flavor, right? They had that extremely straight white guy aesthetic, and that I think has continued so far. Like that those were her roots, right? Those were his roots when it comes to creating content and being a part of content which is straight, which is white, which is kind of problematic, which is adultish as well. You can't really watch it with your family. And being a podcaster, being a creator, a comedian, that still holds true. He has evolved, sure, across formats, but the core still the same guy.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you can't change your core. And if you
Yeah.
are changing, people can smell it from far away, right?
Yeah.
There are many people, I mean, yeah, speaking of, the political divide, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I don't have any problem with anyone in case they are being truthful, right?
Hmm.
Some people, their core is different, then you can't be, someone else. And I put massive respect to Henry Schultz's name because of that. I
Hmm.
think he's doing what he's good at. I
Yeah.
think he's not exploiting. He's exploring his own kind of, audience,
Hmm.
and it's very funny, how people discover him, because I discovered him around like 2017, 18,
Hmm.
when nobody even, know about him. He did
Hmm.
not have any appearance on Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
so he was relatively unknown outside America. But I was a lot to Russell Peters at that time, and Russell Peters, usually insults a lot of audience members,
Hmm.
particularly Indians, and
Of course.
healthy insults and jokes, right? So, I mean, YouTube kind of recommended this
Hmm.
new comedian to me who's doing a better crowd work, an enhanced version of Russell Peters. And I mean, I was you know I was converted at that time.
Yeah.
I started following him. The flagrant thing happened much later, and I found him funny, man.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think what you mentioned right at the end as well, right? Like, so I just want to read out the definition of flagrant. So, flagrant, of course, is the name of his podcast that he hosts, right? Akash Singh is, of course, a major figure who sort of spun off into his own career. Like, he's done his own specials and he has his own sort of thing going, and he's quite funny as well. You keep seeing on YouTube. But let me define flagrant, right? So, flagrant, according to the Oxford language, according to the dictionary, is shocking because it is done in a very obvious way and shows no respect for people, laws, etc. Right? So I just read that verbatim. And if you think about it, Shubham, this perfectly encapsulates Andrew Schulz style. This word, which is like, we unabashed, which he doesn't care. He doesn't really care
Yeah,
about, what you're going to think or, oh, what,
yeah,
stories you're going to cook up for him. He can give nothing to you. Like, he has nothing to spare to give to you, and he is extremely vocal about things, whatever it's on his head. Sure, that's not to say that all he says is without research, right? Which we'll come to,
yeah,
which will when we'll sort of deep dive, which will dive into his style, and we will discover that. But this word is very important for me. That is the name of his podcast, right? There's Flagrant 2. Like, the Brilliant Idiots is also one of the name of his other podcast that's there. So he is very consciously leaning into this narrative of a young, I don't know what young is anymore, honestly, but of this American male adultish person who has a personality, who's unabashed, who doesn't care, who's probably like, happy being at the top and, laughing at the minorities, and he's okay with it, right? So I think very interesting choice for the name of his podcast, which is Flagrant. And another thing which I want to point out, Shubham, is his name of his special, which is Infamous, right? So it beautifully, look at the personal branding, like you always talk about personal branding. This guy, of course, is the antithesis of personal branding, because personal branding is always, oh, nice, professional. This guy is the most unprofessional guy that you can come across. He's politically incorrect.
yeah.
He's basically, he causes a ruckus in most crowds, right? He tries to sort of aggravate a crowd, of course,
Provocative. Yeah,
not in a righteous way, that in
yeah,
like a, in a way that's, completely off kilter, but sure, he does try to provoke some people, at least of the
yeah.
audience.
It's healthy.
And
Yeah,
yeah, and it's healthy, right? And the way he does it is pretty interesting. And So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with both Infamous and Flagrant. Very good examples of his
yeah.
personality.
I would add to your point that comedians need to be provocative, man.
Hmm.
And to your point of making fun of minorities, when you don't make fun of some people,
Hmm.
you're not giving them enough respect. You're putting their threshold much lower to yours. So
Hmm.
I think one of the signs of equality in a society for me is that
Hmm.
you can make fun of everyone.
Hmm.
Let's say you can't, oh no, you can't say this about Indians, you can't say that about let's say people from Africa or
Hmm.
any part of the world. I think that's a bit kind of disrespectful to those people. They can take jokes, of course.
Hmm.
And when certain kinds of cultures are talked about, let's say on a comedy stage, people tend to discover those cultures, right?
Hmm.
Because Andrew Schulz, his research, you
Yeah.
said, is very good with research. He knows
Yeah.
about the problems, local problems of different cultures,
Hmm.
like what's happening in China, what's happening in India. So I think he's a good provocateur, like how do you pronounce that word?
Yeah.
So uh, speaking about his name, I think it's a very apt name. I did not know about this word before.
Yeah.
So he's very good with words as well. I must give it
Correct.
to him.
No,
Yeah.
for sure. No, I think, and let's also understand his style as well, right? Like, Shubham, like, you have comedians, you know, be it a Chappelle or even a Louis C.K., of course, who uses a lot of anecdotes, right? Like, he does a lot of anecdotal about his whatever daughter and all. This guy, not really a storyteller, right? Like, he's not really very deep into
He's not.
oh,
yeah.
this happened, then this happened, but wait, this happened. You don't really go for an Andrew Schulz show. You go there because he has a crazy opinions that, oh, you know what, I don't know, North Indians suck, right? Like, he's going to say something like that, and people are gonna, ha ha ha, why? And why? Because they abuse their own whatever. So I mean, just an example of that, right? Like, he won't say that, oh, the other day I was going and I saw this person. Not really. Like, that's not a very anecdotal style. He has a provocative. He will say something big, and then he will underlie it with examples, and
Yeah,
then he's going
yeah,
to interact with the crowd. That, what, I'm going to give you an example. Hey, you man,
yeah.
are you this thing? Oh, you know what? You suck. Your entire this thing. So
I think he's
yeah,
good with of course research, and he has good insights.
that's very interesting. Like, how the insights that he has are quite entertaining. Like, how do you make insights entertaining? You can look at Andrew Schultz,
Correct.
right? You basically learn a bit about the world, that, oh, Israelis are like this, oh, Australians have this, Haryanvis, like, there's a gender disparity, which we know about, which were in India. But for a guy sitting in New York to know about that is disparity in the gender ratio in Haryana, is quite crazy. Like, I would
I
never
think his
think that.
partner Akash helps him
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
with
I think
research.
so. I think so. That's a very big part of his repertoire, which is his sparring partner, who's of course Akash. But talking about not just his style but also his persona, I actually want to call him a post 2020 decade, or like a not post pandemic, I would say, but he is basically a new phase of a comic, right? So I'll tell you how I've mapped it out, right? He uses short form content was a major pull for him, right? And of course, he's done a great conversation with Colin and Samir as well, like, where he spoke about his journey and how he looks at social media, how he looks at specials. And he is one comic who has really really leaned into the YouTube personality, right? Like, using YouTube, using short form and long form, and almost becoming like, what, it's okay if you don't have legacy media, like, it's okay if you don't have a Comedy Central show. Of course, he did have an MTV show like he was doing, but he was very okay with going into the digital media. He had that foresight, right? So he's not just insightful, right? He's not just insightful with his research and whatnot, but he also know where the trends are heading. So he knows how short form is important. But interestingly, look at this now, look at this comparison. He knows short form is important, but at the same time, he has podcasts which are long form, which are extremely long
Yeah,
form
it's
content
very interesting.
pieces,
Yeah,
right? And he has Flagrant, which is obviously there. Flagrant 2 was also, of course, there. He has The Brilliant Idiots, where he speaks about, I don't even know, like, I can't pin it
everything.
down to anything. He can speak about anything because he's
Yeah,
spoken to MKBHD, very interesting
that
shorts
was a
that he's
good
done.
conversation.
Very good
Yeah,
conversation, right? Because he's done such, and you can see that MKBHD is kind of like, a bit disheveled after speaking with him, because MKBHD is a very plain, simple, cool tech guy,
yeah,
and
yeah.
here you have
He
this
has
man who's,
this. Andrew Schulz has this, I think, superpower of approaching a subject from a very funny angle.
yeah,
Because Yeonmi Park,
yeah.
a North
Oh,
Korean,
we
uh, you
cannot
know,
not talk about Yummy Park. Yeah,
survivor. Yeah,
yeah,
she's been on Joe Rogan, she's been on Jordan Peterson, she has been on Chris Williams, and I've listened to all these interviews. But when she came on Andrew Schulz, it was so fun. She was having fun. She
yeah.
was talking about her life in North Korea, how she ran away from there. But he made it so fun, and she also had fun. Viewers also had fun. So
Absolutely.
guy has good conversational skills as well. That's why I think he has appeared thrice on Joe Rogan so far, I
Mm.
guess.
Yeah, including a recent appearance where he was doing archery for some reason, which is very interesting to me always, as to what people
And
do on.
on your point of is new kind of comedy.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle recently, he did not exactly like. I mean, Joe Rogan said that
Mm.
he's doing something new, just like you pointed out, and
Mm.
and Dave Chappelle said that that's not exactly comedy, stand-up comedy, and that's what we don't do. So I mean, he kind
I
of
have a hot
reacted
take
to it.
actually. Yeah, I
He,
have a
he
hot
he
take.
reacted to it as
Yeah,
well, and he kind of looked hurt
yeah,
because he couldn't get that affirmation from his idol.
from his idols. But you know
Yeah,
what? That's what I'm gonna say. That I think Dave Chappelle is actually jealous. I think he's just, because if you think about it, right, Dave Chappelle is obviously a legend. He's
that's a
he's
good hot
great.
take.
He's done. Yeah, but the fact is that if you were to, of course, Chappelle in the early 2000s, probably in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, he's been a very popular figure. He's pretty much carried comedy forward. But for a newcomer, right, for some, and of course Dave Chappelle also has a podcast, which is an Luminary, I think, and he does his own stuff which is there. He also does
Yeah.
short form and long form. It's not that he's completely devoid of that. But the recognition that Dave Chappelle would have for a young, like, let's say if you take a 19-year-old boy in New York City, I don't think they would probably resonate or know Chappelle, but they would definitely know about Flagrant. They would definitely know about Andrew Schultz,
I mean,
right?
I would
Chappelle is a
kind of
legend.
disagree. I mean,
Okay.
people are, see, Chappelle is still the goat. I
Yeah.
mean, when his his specials drop, the
Hmm.
internet breaks,
Hmm.
everything goes on pause.
Hmm.
So I think Chappelle is still the goat, but I would agree with you. Like, I
Hmm.
think there is a hint of insecurity
Yeah.
when it comes to Schulz, because Schulz is a funny guy, and when Joe Rogan when Joe Rogan talks about something, the internet listens, right? People listen. So I think there was a hint of insecurity. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. It's interesting how Andrew Schultz has managed to take comedy, which was pretty much, I would say, it was going through a bit of a dry phase. If I'm being honest, like it's not having the best of times. Even if you look at India right now, right? Like it's. Can you remember? Do you remember the time, Shubham, around, I would say, 2017, 18, where you would have stand-up comedy videos like shot at Habitat or whatever. They were on rotation, right? Like you would have people upload videos, those 15-minute videos and all of that, on rotation. But it's just that now, of course, crowd work has become a very interesting part of people's repertoires, and like people are using crowd work to get their message across, to get how, but not everybody can do it. And I think
Yeah.
Andrew Schultz is one of those people who can manage to do crowd work. He can have those funny conversations like, with an MKBST or the Yunmi Park, and at the same time, he has a astute businessman, right? Because of course he's making the money, he's making the bucks. He also has a Patreon, right, where he can essentially you can sort of get extra episode, you can get bonus content and whatnot. So naturally he will have a loyal fan following. People, I don't think too many females would be a subscriber of Andrew Schultz. I think he's again a very he's a very male person.
Yeah, and I would say, females in comedy is a very touchy subject for
Yeah,
Americans nowadays,
correct.
because females are breaking into comedy. I mean, there have been legends in the past
Right,
as well, but
right.
not, the number is pretty much,
Absolutely,
we
it is
can
cute for
count on
sure.
fingers. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's interesting how yeah, how what he's done so far. But let's answer the last question, Shubham, is where do you think Andrew Schultz can go from here, right? Because if you were to just map out where he's at currently, right? Like if you were to just open up his like his YouTube, I see something very interesting, right? Because he has essentially his main channel that we have, which is of course the Andrew Schultz. He's very open about that, and at the same time he has like channels like Schultz Shorts. So again, he has a dedicated channel for YouTube Shorts, and that itself has 107,000 subscribers. So he has a play button there as well. So he's very focused on that. He has Flagrant, which has 1.25 million subscribers, which is almost as much as 2.69 on his main channel. He has the Brilliant Idiots, which he also hosts, and he has Flagrant Clips and Brilliant Idiots Clips. So are you seeing a pattern here? How focused he is on short form content? He has three channels, and for all of those channels, he has a separate clips channel. He has a separate short form channel because he knows the power of short form, of just pumping the algorithm, making sure people can take those snippets, those bites of funnier things, and then they get introduced to your world, and then they're very happy with whatever you've put out, and they're basically a fan. So I think definitely these three properties are interesting. I can definitely see this man appearing in more mainstream cinema now, in
exactly.
probably
Yeah,
a like
I was
a
coming to that only.
yeah,
Yeah.
like he can be a I'll tell you, like I'll give an example, right? Like for the Indian viewers, like a Bassi who's there, like a Bassi who's a comedian. He was recently in a Ranveer Kapoor movie, which is done quite well, and he was a sidekick. So I'm saying Andrew Schultz might not be the main character. Of course, he's the main character of his own life, but compared to your legends of Hollywood and everything, he can be a great best friend, or he can be
Yeah.
a great elder brother
See,
character.
every creator in the West either ends up as an actor or as an MMA fighter. I don't know what's happening in the West. Why they're fighting KSI versus this or
Oh
that.
gosh.
So I totally agree with you. I think in the next 5-10 years we're going to see him in movies as a sidekick or as, I don't know, standalone character actor. I don't know,
Yeah,
because even Dave Chappelle has acted in films.
sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so everyone ends up becoming actor. in the
Yeah.
West. So yeah, hopefully we see him in movies. Yeah,
Yeah, hopefully we'll see him there, and like just his persona, I think is very him. Like he has really worn that. Like I don't know how he is in person. Like I don't know too much about him as a person, probably, but he's quite
yeah,
funny, and he's quite like I'm pretty sure he's not faking it. Like he's not being provocative just for the sake of it.
yeah.
I'm
Of
sure within
course,
a closed room also he'll touch your
say the same
nerve.
things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He'll
Yeah,
pick he'll pick the wrong bone so that you can give a reply to him, and both of y'all will laugh over it, and both of y'all won't mind as well because you know that he's like that as a person. So he's authentic. That is his brand. So big lesson here is that it's not that because you speak about brand, you have to be very goody goody. You
yeah.
can be like this. Like you can be unabashed. Of course, you will face criticism. There will be a lot of people calling you out, but if
Well,
you're prepared for that,
criticism is there in
yeah,
everything. If you
exactly.
don't do or do, yeah,
Exactly. So you're sort of prepared for that. And then you can just create Y2 podcasts more and more
yeah,
clips and more
yeah.
shows and more specials.
Absolutely, we're enjoying his work, crowd work, and hopefully we get to become a part of that crowd when he's
Yeah,
performing
that's
someday.
a dream. Yeah, that's
Yeah, please
also
come
very
to India
interesting.
or
Yeah,
invite us there.
invite us for sure, or probably for a MMA fight as well. That'll also be a fun one. But that's been it from our side, folks, on this episode of Creator Deep Dive, where we spoke about Andrew Schulz, right? What goes on behind the closed doors of the man who is pretty much what he is on paper. Like what you see is what you get. He's pretty much the personality that he portrays is what he is inside. And interesting times. He's been a forerunner of the new comedic movement, which I would say pretty much started in like 2019, like ever since short form content sort of came to the fore. So he's been like that, and things are looking up for Andrew Schulz. Please tell us in
Yep.
the comment section what your thoughts are about Andrew Schulz, if at all, and which creator you'd like us to cover next. Until then, that's me. I'm Shrivar.
This is Shubham Tiwari.
Okay, thank you.